please remain standing for some reflections by Reverend Christine Powell.
Well, I'd like to thank the Worshipful Mayor of Hillingdon, Councillor Reeta Chamdal, for the invitation to speak to you this evening. And I want to share with you a reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and illness. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field." The focus of this passage is the crowds. The state of the crowds is they were harassed and helpless. And Jesus' solution to this problem is to send out workers, to raise up leaders who will see the people, leaders who will have compassion on the people, those willing to step into places of leadership, those willing to offer themselves to lead, not for personal gain or glory, but willing to pay the price of leadership because it is costly. Leaders willing to pay that price because they see the needs of the people, because they are moved with compassion for the people. And they are ready to take a stand, ready to be led by their convictions and effect change on behalf of others. And this is the heart of good leadership, working for and on behalf of others. And good leadership is crucial for healthy society. But in this day and age, it is becoming increasingly difficult and uncomfortable to step into the public space and dare to lead. So I commend you, and I pray for you and for all our community leaders today. May we lead with our eyes and our hearts open to the people. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Okay, so before we start, actually it's pretty cool in here. Yes, no? Yeah? If anybody does feel warm at any point, you are welcome to take your jackets off. Agreed? Yeah. Okay, so moving on to agenda item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, councillors. I have apologies from councillors Banerjee, Garg and Higgins.
Okay. Agenda item 2, the minutes from the council meeting held on the 26th of February and the 14th of May. Are both sets approved? Thank you. Okay, declarations of interest, agenda item 3. Do we have any? No? Perfect. Okay. Agenda item 4, Mayor's announcements. Well, it's been a busy 6 weeks since we last met. First of all, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all our new councillors. I hope you've all settled in well. It does take time. I remember just how much there was to learn when I first became a councillor. So I wish you every success on your journey. So the past 6 weeks or so have been a real privilege. I've had the honour of representing Hillingdon at many wonderful events celebrating our history, our volunteers, and the strong community spirit that makes our borough so special. We've marked some significant milestones, including Lady Bank's 90th birthday, the 50th anniversary of the Ickenham Festival, where the residents do a fantastic job putting it all together. There was the 50th anniversary of the Navnat Vanik Bagani Samaj, a voluntary organisation for women in the Asian community. And then we had the 15th anniversary marking the end of the war in Iraq. I've also had the pleasure of meeting some remarkable people, England rugby captain Mario Ituje, who positively towered over me at the opening of the Inside Independent School. And at the Chamber of Commerce Expo, I met up with our very young Captain Fantastic. Hillingdon also had an opportunity to meet and engage with the new High Sheriff of London, who was very keen to visit the borough. Councillor Kamal Kaur and I opened the new practice nets at Hayes Cricket Club. Let's just say it was a good job we were there to open the nets rather than play for the club. I'd like to thank my consort Roy and escorts Evie, Dante and Lavinia for their wonderful support at many events, which included the graduation of the students from the Hillingdon Music Service, which is always a wonderful evening. Laying a wreath at St Paul's for the Polish Airmen's Association and unveiling a plaque for the late Apostle Tunde, who was truly a remarkable individual. A sincere thank you to everyone who supported our charity summer quiz. I thought I was a good quizzer, but I have to admit some of those questions are much tougher than I expected. There will be more quizzes, so do come and join us. I'd like to finish with a little pause for thought. Councillor Smallwood and I were chatting at one of my first public events at the Ruislip Royal British Legion when he asked, "Madam Mayor, what have you got on today?" So naturally I thought he meant what I was wearing. So I proudly replied, "My robes." Of course, he was asking what I had planned for the rest of the day. We looked at each other, smiled, and had a good laugh. And it reminded me that a smile costs nothing, yet it can mean everything. It can brighten someone's day, lift their spirits, and remind them that kindness still exists. As councillors, we all have the opportunity to make a difference, not always through grand gestures, but often through the smallest acts of kindness. So the next time you're on the tube, in a shop, or simply walking through our borough, look up and smile at someone. You never know what kind of day they're having, but your smile might be exactly what they needed. If each of us leaves just one person feeling a little happier than we met them, we made Hillingdon a kinder place. Okay. On to agenda item 5, questions from the public. So the first question is from Selina Shabir of Allendale Drive to Councillor O'Brien. Is Selina Shabir here? No? Okay, so the question is to Councillor O'Brien, and as she's not here, I'm not going to read it. So
Madam, if the question is not present, you can...
So Councillor O'Brien, the question is as per the order sheet.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will write to the resident. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
Madam Mayor, I should probably just, for the reassurance of members and the questioners, if a written answer is given, the answer will be included in the minutes. So.
Question 2. It's from Daniel O'Neill of Ashburton Road, Ruislip, and that's to the Deputy Leader of the Council, Councillor Richard Mills. Daniel is here, but has asked me to read the question. So, at Cabinet on 25th of June, the Council emphasised transparency, scrutiny, accountability and residents' confidence. The Council also has published an unreasonable and unreasonably persistent complainants policy with formal safeguards before contact restrictions are imposed. Could the Cabinet member... Yep. Loud enough voice. It's a loud voice that I use to shout at Roy.
Wait a minute. Andy, sorry, could we have one of the handhelds? Because the mic needs to be on, so it's what's picked up on the YouTube recording, and that obviously is a...
Thank you, Andy. So, coming back to the question, could the Cabinet member explain whether the Council operates an and any separate non-UPC single point of contact arrangements which restrict, route, filter, delay or centralised residence correspondence. Publish the governance framework for those arrangements, including threshold criteria, authorisation, data protection basis, notice, review or appeal rights, duration and response time standards. Confirm whether such arrangements can affect correspondence sent directly to elected councillors, and provide the current number of residents subject to a formal UPC restrictions, or B, non-UPC SPOC arrangements, and C, any arrangements affecting emails addressed to councillors. Sorry, Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council does operate single point of contact arrangements, but only in limited evidence-based circumstances. These are managed contact arrangements, not informal restrictions, and sit within a defined governance framework. They are distinct from the Council's published unreasonable and unreasonably persistent complainants, UPC policy, as they may be applied where the pattern of contact does not meet the formal UPC threshold, but still requires structured management. A single point of contact is a recognised way of coordinating high volume or repetitive contact through one channel, ensuring consistency, proportionality, and a clear audit trail. Madam Mayor, as you would imagine, only a very small number of individuals are subject to one of these extremely specific arrangements. It is important to note that a single point of contact is not a ban on contact, a replacement for the UPC policy, or an unmanaged or hidden restriction. And finally, to ensure that we continue to champion openness and transparency, it does not affect correspondence with elected members. However, it is of course always up to members to choose who they engage with and respond to.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Mills. Better? Yeah, perfect, lovely. So, question 5.3, that's from Nikki Crowther. Is Nikki here? Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
And the question is to Cabinet Member for Resident Services, Councillor Bridges.
Good evening, everybody. Regardless of political party, we've all felt the waves of exceptional heat recently. Can I urge us all to unify behind Hillingdon Council to accelerate the electrification of transport?
Nikki, you need to read the question that you've submitted.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I urge Hillingdon Council to accelerate the electrification of transport and easy EV charging. I note the bewildering recent purchase of 32 new diesel vehicles for the council fleet. Yet 6 years have lapsed since the climate emergency declaration in 2020. This underlines the need to accelerate to zero emissions policy. Can the council commit to making all subsequent vehicle purchases fully electric? Thank you.
Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the resident for her question. The Council shares the ambition of reducing emissions from its fleet and remains committed to increasing the number of electric vehicles it uses. However, we cannot commit to all future vehicle purchases being fully electric at this stage. While a fully electric fleet remains the long-term goal, the practical and financial challenges cannot be ignored. Many of the Council's frontline vehicles operate throughout the day, often undertaking duties where the current electric alternatives do not yet provide the necessary range, payload, or operational resilience. In addition, the Council's depot infrastructure is not yet capable of supporting large-scale fleet charging without significant further investment. The 32 diesel vehicles recently purchased replace older, less efficient vehicles and meet the latest emissions standards. They were selected following an assessment of operational requirements, affordability and value for money for residents. Importantly, the savings achieved through this procurement will be reinvested in upgrading charging infrastructure at council depots, helping to create the foundations for greater EV adoption in the future. These vehicles provide greater flexibility to transition to electric alternatives as technology develops, infrastructure expands and costs continue to fall. The Council will continue to review every vehicle replacement opportunity and will choose electric vehicles wherever they are practical, reliable and represent good value for taxpayers' money. Alongside this, we will continue expanding EV charging infrastructure across the borough to support the wider transition to cleaner transport. The question is not whether the council will move towards a fully electric fleet, but how we do so in a way that is operationally effective, financially responsible, and delivers the best outcomes for both the environment and Hillingdon residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. We have a question from Wendy's Heath James of Wren Drive, West Drayton. However, Wendy's not here today, so her question is as per the order sheet to Councillor Dennis. Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll write to Wendy and give her the response over email.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. We have a question from Patricia Wardle of Whiteclose, Ruislip. Again, Patricia is not here today, and her question is as per the order sheet to Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too will provide a written answer in due course.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. We have a question from Sean Kremen of Pine Gardens, Eastcote.
Thank you. Good evening. The annual performance report highlights a big difference in fly tipping enforcement in Hillingdon compared to other London boroughs. Hillingdon recording 24 actions per 1,000 incidents compared to a London average of over 600. Can Cabinet Member Mr Bennett please indicate whether this disparity will be addressed? Fly tipping has a significant detrimental effect on residents' experiences in and perceptions of their community. It is noticeable in my locality how fly tipping has increased and persistently happens in the same places. It does seem some fly tippers are exploiting the lack of enforcement as they know they are very likely to get away with it.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Sean Kremen, for your question. The statistics in the report are useful, but just to caveat that it's important to flag that they're not a like-for-like comparison. Councils record enforcement activity in different ways. Incidents reported by the Environment Agency are excluded, and our borough's larger size and unique geography isn't considered. However, to answer your question, yes, the disparity is actively being addressed. No resident should be in any doubt about this Conservative administration's determination to tackle what is criminal behaviour. That is precisely why, under Councillor Tuckwell's leadership, we've created my new position as Cabinet Member for Community, Environment and Enforcement, placing this issue firmly at the heart of our priorities. Quite simply, we must be brilliant at doing the basics. Whilst only a few weeks into my role, we're already seeing positive steps and improvements. We're doubling down on enforcement through intelligence-led operations, hotspot patrols and stronger investigations. And where the law allows, we're also seizing and crushing vehicles used by those who are responsible. We're on the side of law-abiding Hillingdon residents and will punish those who are not. It's simply just not right, as you say, that hard-working Hillingdon taxpayers' money should have to foot the bill for clearing up the mess that's left by criminals. And we will continue to use every power available to us to pursue these offenders and protect our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. We have a question from Susan Brown of Kings End, Ruislip, and Susan has asked me to read the question, and this is for Councillor Dennis. It is concerning that statutory consultative responses, which the Council has confirmed from part of the public planning file, are not routinely published and have not been provided for the St Martin's approach application despite repeated requests. Can the Cabinet Member confirm whether the new planning portal will ensure routine publication of statutory consultative responses and officer reports, and that the advice already issued by Historic England and GLAAS, including GLAAS's recommendations for predetermination archaeological evaluation, will be fully taken into account when determining the St Martin's approach application? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Susan, for your question. As I'm sure you appreciate, being a super user of the Council's planning case management system, it has existed for a long, long time, even longer than I've been a councillor. Actually, another super user of the system from Eastcote Residents Association emailed me today to say they supported your question. And the truth is, it is nearing the end of its operational life. As you point out, it does not currently allow statutory consultee responses to be published online. While these responses form part of the planning file and can be viewed by arrangement, we recognise this is not ideal. I agree that there should be a more accessible process for residents and councillors. The good news is that we will enhance the existing system so statutory consultee comments can be published online, and this is expected to start happening within the next few weeks, and will allow the relevant comments on the application to be published before a decision is made. The even better news is that we're going to replace the current planning case management system with one that will provide a more transparent and accessible service. It will include the ability to publish comments received on planning applications, including statutory consultee responses, and everyone should be able to use this new system before Easter. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. We have a question from Graham Bartram of Bellevue Manor, Ruislip. Graham isn't here today, so his question is per the order sheet to Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will also provide a response in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. We have a question from Caroline Towner of Lakeside Close, Ruislip, to the Resident Services Councillor Bridges again. Caroline isn't here today, so the question is per the order sheet. Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As before, I will also provide a written answer.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. We have a question from Jessica Lane of Greenway Yedding on behalf of the Barnhill Estate Residents Association. Again to Councillor Bridges. Not here again today, Jessica, but the question is per the order sheet. Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the absence of the resident, I will also provide a written answer.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. And we have a question from Katrina Patterson of Victoria Road, Uxbridge, to Councillor Bridges.
Uxbridge residents and the people who work here have had a large post office in Uxbridge for the last for over 100 years. Our last post office at the junction of Belmont Road and High Street closed on the 30th of May this year. The delay in replacing it is difficult to understand in a town where the population continues to grow at pace. What is the council doing to support and encourage progress for bids to the Post Office Limited for a post office in the town centre, even a temporary one, as soon as possible?
Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Katrina Patterson, for your question. It is important to be clear that the Post Office is a commercial organisation, and decisions on the opening, closure and operation of branches are matters for Post Office Limited, not the Council. However, as soon as it became clear the residents that Uxbridge was at risk of losing its last town centre post office, the Council acted quickly to support a solution. Our priority was to work constructively with the Post Office and explore every available option to maintain access to services for residents and local businesses. Their initial focus was understandably on securing a permanent commercial premises. When it became apparent that this was unlikely to be achieved in the short term, the Council stepped forward and began discussions about accommodating a temporary branch ourselves. I'm pleased to confirm that those discussions have progressed positively. Agreement has been reached in principle for a temporary post office to operate from the Civic Centre campus adjacent to the new Uxbridge Library, and the necessary lease documentation is now being prepared. Subject to completion of the lease and the Post Office Limited's final operational arrangements, residents should once again have access to post office services in Uxbridge Town Centre very soon. This demonstrates the Council's willingness to step in and support residents where we can, despite having no statutory responsibility to do so. I would also like to thank the Corporate Director for his leadership on this project and the newly elected Uxbridge Ward Councillors for ensuring local residents' concerns were heard and championed throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. And our final question for the evening is from Janet Kelly-Roginger of Fraser Avenue, West Drayton. Janet is not here today, so her question is as per the order sheet to Councillor Bridges.
Madam Mayor, I will provide a written response.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. Okay, agenda item 6, report of the Head of Democratic Services. Over to Lloyd.
Madam Mayor, before you call on the Council, I just want to draw members' attention to an additional recommendation which is halfway down page 6, and it's an additional committee membership change as asked for by the Reform UK group. So over to Councillor Tuckwell.
Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are 4 items contained in the report from the Head of Democratic Services this evening. Section 1 outlines decisions that were taken under urgency provisions and are being reported to Council as required. Section 2 reports the result of the Hillingdon West election. which is a clear and decisive with strengthened mandate for the Conservative group. Those are not marginal movements, they are a clear affirmation of local support. In section 2 is also the political balance of the council remains unchanged, but the direction of travel is not in contest. Section 2 also notes some changes in committees. Turning to section 3, which is turning to the appointment of the interim 151 officer. This is a straightforward step required to ensure the council continues to meet its statutory obligations in respect of financial administration and control. This follows the unfortunate illness of the Corporate Director for Finance, and I would like to place on record our best wishes to Steve Muldoon for a full and speedy recovery. Yeah. The appointment before us ensures continuity and resilience in a critical statutory function. Section 4 of this report concerns the revised petition scheme. It sets out a series of proposed updates to the way petitions are received, validated and considered. There is a clear intention of ensuring the process remains clear, consistent and accessible for all residents. Madam Mayor, I move all 4 items en bloc. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could, just before you ask for a second, I should have mentioned this earlier. Pete Carpenter, whose item is here, has declared an interest and left the room, and we'll make sure that's recorded in the minutes.
Lovely. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mills.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second the recommendations shown in the report and would also like to take this opportunity to reflect on recommendation 2A. In noting the result of the election in Hillingdon West Ward, this of course confirms your position as the first citizen of our borough, Madam Mayor. As you will of course know, your election and subsequent victory was delayed by 6 weeks, but that also gave local residents a chance to have their first say on this new administration and how they took that opportunity, Madam Mayor. A resounding vote of confidence in Hillingdon Conservatives, with your previous marginal ward now being dominantly won with more than double the votes of your nearest opponent, and with you and Councillor Bennett achieving an even greater share of the vote than previous super safe, solid Labour wards including Belmore, Pinkwell, Woodend and Hayes Town. This shows that Hillingdon residents have the trust and confidence in this administration to continue to deliver high quality services and outstanding value for money through our continued residents first approach. Because your election was delayed, Madam Mayor, it meant the council was still in a pre-election restricted period for a while, and this limited the amount that we could do and publicly communicate. However, now that's passed, we'll be doing even more and doing it at pace. And this is exactly the catalyst for the improvements that we are bringing tonight in terms of updating our petition scheme. Ultimately, this will allow for more things to get done and to get them done quicker. This new intelligent intervention approach will streamline resident requests, remove unnecessary time barriers and allow the relevant council service areas to act at pace while still involving the relevant cabinet member in any response to residents. Now, for openness and transparency, it's important for all members to note that a small petition was submitted in opposition to these improvements. That has been considered as we move ahead and make this decision this evening. Let me be clear, Madam Mayor, this administration has been returned by our residents with an increased majority and a clear mandate to deliver for our borough. We will continue to make decisions and deliver efficiencies for the council, and we will not be held back by those continually looking to block progress, either by those rejected at the ballot box or even more so, those who continue to shout online without having the courage to put themselves forward and face the electorate. Yeah. Madam Mayor, it should be noted that the future changes to planning petitions are as a result of upcoming national reforms to planning delegation, not decisions ourselves. In fact, something that this council objected to, as we highlighted it will remove members of the public's rights and involvement in the future decision-making process. These local improvements tonight bring us more in line with neighbouring boroughs' petition schemes, and whilst not compulsory, we believe this is an important part of engagement and democracy with residents across the borough. These are positive changes being made that will speed up process, improve decision-making, and ultimately deliver an improved outcome and experience for the residents of our borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. We have a question from Councillor Mann.
Madam Mayor, Hillingdon Labour also, to start off, wishes Steve Muldoon a full and complete recovery, swift one. Hillingdon Labour rises to oppose the proposed changes to the residents' petition scheme. This is not a minor procedural update. It is a significant reduction in how residents can bring concerns to this council and be heard in a visible and democratic way. Petitions are one of the very few direct tools residents have to show collective strength of feeling, particularly on local issues that matter deeply to neighbourhoods. The proposed increase in thresholds is too steep. Moving from 20 to 50 signatures for local and planning petitions and from 100 to 500 for borough-wide petitions creates a much higher barrier for residents that will make it harder for small communities, less organised groups, older residents and those without strong digital networks to get their voices recognised. We are also concerned about the removal of automatic cabinet member hearings. A written response or site visit may sometimes be useful, but is not the same as a public hearing. A public hearing gives residents transparency, visibility, and the ability to raise their concerns directly. It shows accountability in a way that a private written response simply does not. The changes to planning petitions are also worrying. Residents should not lose speaking rights simply because an application is being determined by an officer rather than planning committee. These are often the cases where residents most want a clear public voice, and this change weakens that right. Other Labour-led boroughs in West London have shown that you can modernise petition schemes without closing down resident access. Ealing still allows paper and e-petitions, and residents can present petitions to council meetings or through their ward councillor. Hounslow also keeps petitions as a route into democratic decision-making rather than making everything dependent on a written response. That is the difference. Good petition schemes should make it easier for residents to be heard, not harder. They should increase transparency, not reduce it. They should strengthen accountability, not move it behind closed doors. So Hillingdon Labour's view is simple. If this council truly values resident engagement, transparency and accountability, then it should not be raising the bar so sharply or removing public hearing rights. We urge members to reject these changes.
Do we have any other speakers? No? Okay, Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is about making our petition scheme work better for residents, not preserving a process simply because it's how it's always been done. Residents don't judge us on how many meetings we hold. They judge us by whether we listen, whether we act at pace, and whether we deliver results. This administration has been clear from day one. We will work at pace, be decisive, and focus relentlessly on outcomes. These changes modernise a scheme that hasn't kept pace with how people engage today. They introduce clear response times, greater transparency, and a stronger democratic oversight. We will also see Cabinet members getting out into our communities to see issues firsthand rather than simply discussing them here in the Civic Centre. And let me be clear on planning petitions. We are not taking away residents' voices. Councillor Mann, you need to have a conversation with your government, because this is about adapting to changes in national planning legislation, making sure residents continue to have a meaningful say, something that we objected in this chamber a while back. The party opposite will try to present this as reducing democracy. It does precisely the opposite. It replaces unnecessary bureaucracy with quicker decisions, faster responses, and clearer accountability. The choice is quite simple. Do we want a petition scheme designed around process, or one that is designed around getting results for residents? I know which side this administration is on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. We will now go to a vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A recorded vote has been called for and supported by the requisite number of members. Just for clarification and for people watching, so a recorded vote, I will ask each member alphabetically in turn if you are voting for the recommendations as shown on page 6, against the recommendations, or abstaining. Councillor Ahmad Walana.
For.
Councillor Ballam.
For.
Councillor Bennett, Councillor Bianco, Councillor Burke, Councillor Bridges, Councillor Capps, Councillor Cawthorne, Councillor Davies, Councillor Dennis, Councillor Desi,
Against.
Councillor Draw, Councillor Dumergue, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Eggington, Councillor Elder, Councillor Farina de Castro, Councillor Gaelic, Councillor Garner, Councillor Gill, Councillor Gohill, Councillor Hassoon, Councillor Huddle, Councillor Amanpreet Kaur, Councillor Kamal Kaur, Councillor Lakmana, Councillor Lavery, Councillor Lucas, Councillor Mand, Councillor Martin, Councillor Mathers, Councillor Douglas Mills, Councillor Richard Mills, Councillor Murray, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Punja, Councillor Rathore, Councillor Raval, Councillor Riley, Councillor Russell, Councillor Sansapuri, Councillor Singh, Councillor Singham, Councillor Smallwood, Councillor Sweeting, Councillor Taneja, Councillor Tuckwell, Madam Deputy Mayor, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Those motions are carried.
Thank you, Lloyd. Right. Yep, number 7. Okay. So, agenda item 7, the West London Waste Plan Regulation 19. Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to move the recommendations before Council regarding the West London Waste Plan. The current plan was adopted in 2015 and is now out of date. The updated plan will provide an up-to-date framework for managing waste across West London through to 2041 and help ensure we have the right facilities and policies in place to support sustainable waste management. Importantly, tonight's decision is not to adopt the plan but to allow Regulation 19 consultation to proceed so that residents, stakeholders and statutory bodies can have their say before the document is submitted for independent examination. The plan supports our ambition for a greener and more sustainable borough, safeguards important waste infrastructure and ensures that future planning decisions are guided by a modern and robust policy framework. Progress in this work will also keep us on track to meet the Government's plan-making timetable and avoid unnecessary delays to the adoption of a new waste plan. For those reasons, Madam Mayor, I move the recommendations and commend them to Council. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to second this motion. I've seen a lot of hard work across many London boroughs go into this report, so I do support it going out to consultation to residents.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Do we have any other speakers? Is that agreed? Thank you. Okay. Right. We're on to agenda item 8, members' questions. Before we go on to agenda item 8, we've got some new councillors asking questions for the first time today. Standing up in the chamber for the first time can be daunting. Even our long-serving members, like Councillor Douglas Mills, will remember what the first question felt like. So let's just give them a chance. Okay. So, Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member advise what steps this Council is taking to enable residents from across the borough access to waste and recycling centres?
Thank you. Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Murray, for your question and a warm welcome to the Chamber this evening in your second appearance here. Madam Mayor, we're improving access to household waste and recycling services by expanding the range of facilities available to Hillingdon residents. Residents already benefit from New Year's Green Lane, which is open 7 days a week, and the Tavistock Road site, which currently operates at weekends under a commercial contract that runs until December 2026. I'm therefore pleased to confirm that through our partnership with the West London Waste Authority, we have secured access for Hillingdon residents to the Spaceway Household Waste and Recycling Centre in Hounslow, adjacent to Heathrow. Like New Year's Green Lane, it is open 7 days a week. This provides residents in the south of the borough with greater choice, improved convenience and access to a 7-day service closest to where many of them live, It is another example of this administration enhancing local services while ensuring strong value for Hillingdon taxpayers. That is exactly what residents expect from this Conservative administration: practical improvements, responsible stewardship of taxpayers' money, and a relentless focus on putting Hillingdon residents first.
For supplementary question, Councillor Murray.
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member also advise if the drop and go sessions have been well used, and are there any plans to continue to expand this further? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm delighted to advise that alongside the service enhancements at Spaceway, the Council is also making its successful pop-up waste drop service permanent, following a highly successful trial early this year. During the pilot, almost 29 tonnes of unwanted and bulky waste were collected from more than 920 residents across 10 sessions, with over 300 of those residents attending on foot, demonstrating strong local demand for the service. The scheme will now operate on a fortnightly basis, rotating between targeted locations across all of the borough. As part of this programme, residents in Useley and West Drayton will benefit from at least 6 of these sessions over the next 12 months. This is another example of how the Council is improving services while delivering better value for money for residents. Taken together, these investments provide residents across the south of the borough with a broader range of disposable options and significantly greater access to waste and recycling services. Many residents, particularly those in and around Hayes and Heathrow villages, will find facilities closer to home and more convenient to use, helping to make responsible waste disposal easier than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. Moving on to question 8.7 by Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the Cabinet Member for Community and Environment explain to residents of Useley and West Drayton and beyond why the proposed closure of the Tavistock Road Civic Amenity site, decided without any resident consultation, which would necessitate a round trip of an hour to the new waste and recycling plant in Feltham to dump their rubbish, namely 25 minutes there, a waste drop of approximately 10 minutes plus 25 minutes journey back, a proposal which hardly, and I quote here, inspires residents to reduce their carbon footprint, is putting West Drayton and Useley residents first?
Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe I've already answered the question in my answer given to Councillor Murray some moments ago, so I refer the Councillor to my previous answers.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Sweeting?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When will Hillingdon's Conservative administration start acting as a responsible authority by identifying a permanent civic amenity site in the south of the borough, so that the wards with the highest populations, which are already experiencing a fly tipping epidemic, do not have to go to the council's recommended 1 hour trek into a Labour-run authority to dump their rubbish? A solution which residents are already saying is both unworkable and shows utter contempt towards the council's own residents in those southern wards.
Thank you. Councillor Bridges.
Madam Mayor, as per my earlier answer, this is a service improvement. What we are doing down in the south of the borough is in creating a 7-day-a-week facility. Currently, West Drayton operates at a weekend service. So it is particularly difficult for those in places like Heathrow villages, for many years, have been going to places like Harefield during the week and even to use West Drayton sites at weekends. That is not a good service provision at present, and this enhancement will improve it further. Yeah. But one cannot help but notice, Madam Mayor, or indeed sense, the whiff of hypocrisy that comes from the Labour side here this evening. Indeed, Councillor Sweeting's latest campaign is a remarkable example of political inconsistency. In a My London article published on the 31st of May 2018, Labour described the decision to expand the old Coal Yard Power Day site as deplorable, arguing that residents should not have to endure the impact of the facility. You yourself, Councillor Sweeting, said it left residents feeling utterly betrayed. Fast forward to today, and the very same councillors are complaining yet again about the closure of that site. They cannot have it both ways. They opposed the facility when it was operating, yet now criticise this Conservative administration for replacing it with something better. The facts are very straightforward, Madam Mayor. This administration is enhancing the services available to all residents by providing 7-day-a-week access to Spaceway, replacing a facility that's only available at weekends, alongside an expanded programme of pop-up recycling events across our borough. And when I also read that previous article from 2018, I also come across another very good quote from our Hillingdon Conservatives' very own Sir Ray Puddifoot, who said, and I quote, "The Hillingdon Labour Group has a demonstrable record of whinging and whining and a lamentable record of actually doing anything in any area of service, which is why Hillingdon residents recently chose to continue with a Conservative administration that delivers." Well, there we have it, Madam Mayor. Old habits really do die hard, and we find ourselves yet again in the same boat. Residents deserve much better than opportunistic politics. We knew that Labour had given up being a credible opposition when they failed to produce any form of budget back in February. In May, the voters confirmed that they are not credible, with them losing up to 7 seats. As a responsible elected administration, Madam Mayor, we will continue to do what is right for the whole borough, improving services, delivering better value for Hillingdon taxpayers, and making it easier for residents to dispose of their household waste responsibly.
Thank you, Councillor Bridges. Sorry, do you...
Point of clarification.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, there is no such... Excuse me, thank you, councillors. Madam Mayor, there is no such thing as a point of clarification. I think, if I may assist, I think what you're talking about is a point of personal explanation. And the point of personal explanation is when you must relate to some material part of an earlier speech by the member, which may appear to have been misunderstood in the present debate. Unfortunately, this is not a debate. This is the question session, so unfortunately there is no point of personal explanation.
Down. Lovely. Okay. Right. Councillors, moving on to question 8.6. Councillor Palmer.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Following the announcement that HS2 construction teams are likely to be present in Hillingdon for a decade longer than previously identified, can the Leader of the Council provide an update on steps he is taking to ensure the government provide extra assistance to affected communities?
Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I begin by thanking Councillor Palmer for everything she has done to stand up for residents living with the impact of HS2. She has been relentless in holding HS2 Limited to account and making sure the voices of our communities are heard. The simple fact is that this is not what Parliament signed off. HS2 was approved on the basis that Hillingdon would face disruption for around 10 years, with construction largely complete by 2026. In reality, many of our residents have already been living with the effects of these works for close to a decade. And yet now, Madam Mayor, residents are being told to expect several more years of noise, traffic, road closures and uncertainty. That is not a material change. It is a fundamental shift in what has been asked of our communities, and it changes the basis on which this project was accepted. That is why I have written to the Secretary of State setting out clearly the cumulative impact on Hillingdon and making the case for additional support. Madam Mayor, Councillor Palmer, in particular, I have called for the Hillingdon-specific HS2 Amenity Fund to be revisited. It was agreed nearly a decade ago on a very different set of assumptions, and it is only right that the level of support reflects the reality that our residents are now facing. I will be publishing that correspondence so residents can see exactly the case that we are making on their behalf. We are also continuing to press HS2 and the government to do more to reduce disruption wherever possible, to improve how they communicate and engage with residents, and to ensure the land is returned promptly once it is no longer required. Throughout this process, the Council has acted responsibly in supporting the delivery of a nationally significant project, but that cannot mean accepting an ever-lengthening period of disruption without proper recognition or support. This Conservative administration will continue to stand up for our residents and press firmly and consistently for the mitigation and compensation that our communities deserve. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Palmer?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Miss Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to question 8.2 by Councillor Riley. Your first question, young man.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member provide advice how this council is supporting residents in relation to the commitment of Hillingdon Homes, the Hillingdon people?
Councillor Dennis. Councillor Palmer, could you turn your mic off, please?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Riley, for your question. Can I just say I'm really enjoying the energy which you and the fellow Uxbridge councillors are bringing to your ward work. It's fantastic to see. Providing affordable homes for Hillingdon people remains one of this administration's top priorities. We know how difficult it is for many residents to get on the housing ladder or secure an affordable rented home, which is why we are taking practical, solid action rather than making promises built on weak foundations, which is what this Labour government and the Mayor of London are fond of doing. Over the last year alone, we have delivered 510 social housing lettings for Hillingdon residents, including 271 new or newly acquired council homes. Those homes have gone to local people through our allocations policy, which rightly gives greater priority to residents with long-standing connections to our borough. We want to build Hillingdon communities. But this is about more than bricks and mortar. We are working hard to prevent homelessness wherever possible by providing early advice, supporting residents to remain in their existing homes where appropriate, and helping those who need it to access suitable accommodation, including in the private rented sector. We also continue to work closely with housing associations to bring forward more affordable homes, ensuring that Hillingdon taxpayers' investment deliver homes for Hillingdon residents. There is still more to do, but this council has a clear commitment to increase the supply of affordable housing, support those most in need, and ensure that local homes continue to benefit local people first. Hillingdon Homes for Hillingdon people is what we're about.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Russell?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member also take the opportunity tonight to reassure residents who are worried about what the Mayor of London's forced housing targets mean for Hillingdon, and reassure them that this administration remains committed to defending Hillingdon's award-winning parks and open spaces?
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. Yes. People far away from here who look at maps but never visit Hillingdon will not decide what happens here. This administration was elected on a clear commitment to protect Hillingdon's green nature, our parks and open spaces, and that commitment will never change. Hillingdon Homes is not just about bricks and mortar, it's about having the best place to live. Our parks and open spaces are among the borough's greatest assets. It's one of the many reasons why local people love living here. We are deeply concerned by the Mayor of London's proposals, which ask outer London boroughs like Hillingdon to shoulder the burden of inner London's failure to deliver the homes it has planned for many years. We fully expect housing targets proposed for Hillingdon to be unrealistic, unfair, and have no connection with what Hillingdon is about. This means that many beautiful parts of our green belt might be at risk, but residents should be reassured that we're on their side and we'll do all we can to protect them from Sadiq Khan's bulldozers. Let me be absolutely clear, we will not roll over and accept development imposed from afar that would permanently damage the character of our borough. We'll robustly challenge any targets or policies that threaten our green spaces or undermine the communities we were elected to serve. This does not mean we oppose all development. Hillingdon has a strong record delivering new homes in the right places, including affordable homes for local people. But development must be sustainable, supported by infrastructure, enhance existing communities, and above all, protect the green spaces that make Hillingdon such a special place to live. This administration will continue to stand up for residents, defending them from inappropriate development, and ensure that Hillingdon people, not City Hall pen pushers, determine what is right for our communities.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Question 8.1 by Councillor Bork. Again, your first question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, can the Cabinet Member please advise on feedback received from residents on the launch and opening of the Platinum Jubilee Leisure Centre in West Drayton, and in particular the free weekend at the end of May?
Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bork, for your question. I'm delighted to say that the feedback from residents has been overwhelmingly positive. People have told us how proud they are to have such a modern, high-quality leisure facility in the heart of West Drayton, and the free open weekend at the end of May proved extremely popular, with more than 2,000 visitors coming through the doors to explore and enjoy everything the centre has to offer. Having visited the centre myself on several occasions since it opened, one of the most encouraging aspects has been seeing residents of all ages and backgrounds making full use of the facilities. Families, older residents, people with disabilities and young people are all benefiting from what is on offer. The centre was designed with accessibility and inclusion at its core. From the borough's first splash pad with flume and the pool pod accessible lift to the sensory room for children with SEND and the wide range of fitness, health and community facilities. The figures speak for themselves. Since the opening, more than 1,700 residents have signed up for health memberships and around 700 have enrolled in the swim school. That is an excellent start and clearly demonstrates the strong demand for modern, accessible leisure facilities in the south of the borough. This represents a major investment in the health, well-being and quality of life of our residents and is another example of this administration delivering first-class facilities that will serve the community for many years to come. I would like to thank our leisure partner GLL, our officers and everyone involved in making this outstanding new facility a reality. It is something that West Drayton and indeed the wider borough can be immensely proud of. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reeta. Did you have a supplementary question, Councillor Bork?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to question 8.4, Councillor Ballum. Again, your first question for the Chamber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since the Council introduced its Article 4 direction in relation to HMOs last December, can the Cabinet Member please advise how many HMO applications have been refused in Hillingdon?
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ballum, for your question. Since being elected, I know how hard you've worked for Harefield Village to stand up for local residents, and I know that within the village, numerous HMO applications have been rejected since its Conservative Council brought in tougher regulations. As soon as you were elected, you represented the people of Harefield by coming to me to raise concerns about the HMO application in Lees Close. Because of your work and that of the local residents you support, that application was refused. I'm pleased to report that since the Council's Article 4 direction came into force in December, 25 planning applications for small HMOs have been determined and 22 have been refused. That's an 88% refusal rate. That demonstrates exactly why this administration introduced the direction, to stand up for local residents and protect our communities. Before it came into force, every one of those 22 schemes would have gone ahead without planning permission and without any meaningful scrutiny by the Council. We have been clear from day one that we will not allow the unchecked spread of poor quality HMOs that undermine neighbourhoods and erode family housing, which generate parking pressures, antisocial behaviour and other issues that it is unfair for residents to deal with. Where HMOs are well managed, appropriately located and meet the required standards, they do have a role to play in housing. But we will not accept over-intensive, poorly designed accommodation that puts profit before people and damages established communities. This administration is clamping down on poor housing standards, protecting family homes and standing up for residents against inappropriate development. Article 4 has given us the powers to do that, and the early results show they're already making a real difference to communities across Hillingdon.
Dennis. Councillor Ballum, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. What additional powers will be available to the Council once our tighter licensing regulation on HMOs come in next month?
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Ballum. I'm delighted to confirm that from the 24th of August, every HMO in Hillingdon, including smaller shared houses occupied by 3 or more unrelated people, will require a licence. This is another important step by Hillingdon Conservatives to drive up housing standards and protect our neighbourhoods. Good landlords have nothing to fear, but rogue landlords should be in no doubt that we will stop them operating. The new scheme gives us stronger powers to ensure properties are safe, well managed and properly maintained, with appropriate fire safety measures and decent living conditions for tenants. It also enables us to take firm enforcement action against landlords who fail to meet those standards. Just as importantly, this is about protecting our wider communities. Poorly managed HMOs can bring increased nuisance, antisocial behaviour, parking pressures and environmental problems that have a real impact on neighbours. Residents rightly expect us to tackle those issues, and this scheme gives us the tools to do that. Taken together with the Article 4 direction, this demonstrates that this administration is taking a robust approach to improving housing standards, clamping down on rogue landlords and ensuring that HMOs are properly managed, properly regulated and do not come at the expense of the quality of life of our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Now, final question 8.5 from Councillor Raval. Again, your first question for the Chamber.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Fly tipping is an increasing problem across London and the UK. Please, can the Cabinet Member, Councillor Bennett, share how this administration is taking proactive steps to clamp down on fly tipping?
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Raval, for your question. Welcome to the Chamber. Very good to see Charville Ward all Conservative once more. So building on the answer that I gave earlier, as you allude, fly tipping remains a challenge across Greater London and nationally, and our approach to tackling it is threefold. 1, prevention and early intervention. 2, the rapid removal of waste. And 3, robust enforcement where offenders can be identified. In Councillor Bridges' portfolio, our administration has trialled, and as he mentioned earlier, now rolled out on a permanent basis, borough-wide pop-up waste drops, which make the disposal of bulky waste easier for residents and which have proved to be incredibly popular. In addition, from next week, residents in the south of the borough will gain 7-day-a-week access to the Spaceway Reuse and Recycling Centre, improving on the current weekend-only offering in that part of the borough. The Love Clean Streets app, currently being trialled by councillors, enables fast and easy reporting of fly tipping, and our waste services and street cleansing teams do a fantastic job of responding very quickly, year-round and in all weathers. Our ambition is to scale the digital capability to all residents in due course. From an enforcement perspective, we continue to undertake targeted operations in known hotspot locations, working across services to address persistent issues and improve the local environment. Where incidents occur on private land, such as the Lombardy Retail Park in Hayes, we're lobbying the respective landowners to actually step up and fulfil their obligations. They need to respond as quickly as we do. Incidents like this cannot be ignored. With sufficient evidence, Hillingdon Council will always take formal enforcement action by issuing fixed penalty notices, prosecuting offenders, and by seizing and crushing vehicles involved in environmental crime. With all forms of enforcement, be it fly tipping, parking, traffic, the street scene, public space protection orders, planning, licensing, trading standards, HMOs, or private sector housing, it is my aspiration as the new Cabinet Member that Hillingdon becomes the local authority that is respected by its residents, envied by its peers, and feared by offenders for our tough, zero-tolerance approach. We will use every power available to protect our communities and to pursue the small minority of individuals and businesses who choose to blight the lives of our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Val?
There isn't, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
That concludes the questions. Now, agenda item 9, motions. Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. For decades, Hillingdon Council has been unwavering in its opposition to the expansion of Heathrow Airport through the construction of a third runway. Governments have come and gone, but this council has remained steadfast in standing up for our residents, our communities and our borough. What has changed is the approach from this Labour government. By choosing to allow 2 competing Heathrow expansion proposals at the same time, ministers have once again placed the sword of Damocles over Hillingdon. Thousands of our residents continue to live with the uncertainty whilst homes, businesses and communities remain under the shadow of Heathrow expansion. But this motion is more than about simply reaffirming our opposition. It is about ensuring Hillingdon Council has the resources to fulfil the statutory responsibilities that the government's decisions have placed upon us. The 2 development consent orders processes will require this council to undertake an enormous programme of work over many, many years. scrutinising technical evidence, representing residents, negotiating mitigation, preparing legal submissions and discharging our planning responsibilities. Madam Mayor, none of that work is optional. Parliament has placed those responsibilities on this council and we will discharge them thoroughly and professionally. But it cannot be right that Hillingdon's residents are expected to pay through their council tax for the consequences of decisions taken in Whitehall. If government believes Heathrow expansion is in the national interest, then it must also accept that protecting the communities affected by that decision is also a national responsibility. Our residents should not suffer the double injustice of living under the uncertainty of Heathrow expansion while also paying for this council to carry out the statutory duties that arise from it. This motion also expresses this council's bitter disappointment at the Mayor of London's London plan that makes no meaningful reference to Heathrow expansion or the profound implications that it would have on Hillingdon. Our residents deserve recognition from City Hall, not silence. Madam Mayor, this motion sends a very clear message. We remain unequivocally opposed to Heathrow expansion. We will continue to stand alongside our residents throughout the development consent order processes. And we say clearly to government, if you choose to pursue Heathrow expansion, you must also accept responsibility for its consequences here in Hillingdon by ensuring this council is fully funded to protect the residents that we all serve. I hope members across this chamber will support this motion and I commend this motion to council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. Do we have a second? Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What this motion does is ask the government and the Mayor of London to think about Hillingdon, to respect the residents of Hillingdon, and to promise to do what is so obviously right for Hillingdon. We're not just a drawing on a map. Hillingdon is a lively, thriving and beautiful borough. A pretty drawing and a strike of a pen can negatively affect hundreds of thousands of lives. Proposing to build a third runway at Heathrow is proposing to deliver one of the biggest infrastructure projects Europe has ever seen in one of the most populated areas of Europe. It is proposing to cause very significant disruption to thousands and thousands of people's lives. It is proposing to demolish part of the M25 and then replace it with a tunnel. But where will all the cars go while there is no M25 and no tunnel? What impact will all the extra construction vehicles have on the local roads? It proposes to move rivers and utilities. What will be the impact on our waterways? Can all the waste that is created be disposed of safely? What pollution impacts will there be on residents? It proposes to demolish a large number of homes in Harmondsworth and Sipson and change the environments of Longford and Colnbrook. So what is being proposed, talked about and supported by the Labour government is a big deal in the real lives of Hillingdon people. And let's not forget, as the Mayor of London has, that if a third runway is built, Hillingdon Council will still need to do all the things that a borough does, and the Hillingdon people will still want to do all the things they do now. We did not ask for a proposal for Europe's biggest infrastructure project to be dropped on top of us, so we should not have to pay to deal with it. This motion asks for fairness for Hillingdon. To the government, it asks to give us the national money to handle a national proposal. This includes supporting our right to oppose what would be an extremely negative thing for many of our residents. To the Mayor of London, it asks him to recognise that we exist and that there is a human cost to these proposals. I ask that every councillor in this chamber puts Hillingdon residents first and votes for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. Councillor Cawthorne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Here's a new vantage point for me. It's always good at this stage of a new council term to see new first-time elected members from all parties, and I wish them all well. It is many years since I was in that position myself, of course. But once the excitement of getting elected wears off, I can tell you something we all come to realise pretty quickly is the enormous extent to which the government influences what we do, what we spend, how we must prioritise that spend, as well as the parameters for local decision making, indeed our very existence as a local authority. Now, Madam Mayor, this situation is by no means new, but there is no doubt that local government is being required to carry out increasingly complex duties at ever-increasing cost, but with a diminishing ability to influence local outcomes. Madam Mayor, whatever happened to localism? This government's ham-fisted and convoluted Heathrow expansion consultation is very much a case in point, and colleagues have already spoken eloquently on this. And now, only a few short weeks ago, it was my pleasure as Mayor to be at the opening of the summer season of Great Barn in Harmondsworth. This was described by Betjeman as the Cathedral of Middlesex, and this was the first of several events to mark the 600th anniversary of its construction. I was with the Friends Group and other local volunteers, families and children who relished the atmosphere and the rich history of this very special place. Only last week there was a service at the barn to mark the anniversary involving children from Harmondsworth and Heathrow primary schools. What I see, Madam Mayor, is a community with a keen sense of identity, but one which is battle-weary and under existential threat and totally bewildered by the competing expansion plans. Some of us have also been acutely aware of the problems faced by residents in Harmondsworth and the other villages in accessing GP appointments and community health services owing to the wholly inadequate health infrastructure. There is no doubt that these and other issues have their roots in the blight cast on the local area by the threat of Heathrow expansion, which has existed for many years. Madam Mayor, are the villages and communities not entitled to the effective advocacy and representation by a local planning authority sufficiently equipped and resourced to ensure that the impacts on local communities are fully assessed as part of due planning process ahead of decision making? Or are they simply seen as collateral damage, disregarded and overlooked by the government and our absentee London Mayor? Madam Mayor, we are well used to the unequal struggle between national and local government, but our communities deserve that representation which is worthy of them and is their right. And it is right that we should be demanding an even playing field in facing into this complete dog's breakfast of an approach to consultation on Heathrow expansion. Madam Mayor, I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Davis.
Madam Mayor, I am pleased to support this motion and I thank the leader for bringing it before this council. As part of an increased number of Conservative councillors representing Hayes and Harlington, and someone who has lived in this borough my entire life, I know firsthand the impact Heathrow has on our communities. Heathrow provides thousands of local jobs and is vital to our economy, but supporting Heathrow should never mean sacrificing communities that it surrounds. For the first time, we now have two separate companies competing to expand Heathrow. That means 2 planning applications, 2 public examinations, and years of uncertainty for residents. It is another classic example of the Labour government announcing a headline before they've worked out the detail. Rachel Reeves was very quick to announce Heathrow expansion plans, but what she forgot to announce was who was actually going to build it. Now we have competing schemes, confusion and uncertainty. And once again, it's the residents of Hillingdon who are expected to deal with the consequences. Let's be absolutely clear what Heathrow expansion means for our borough. It means homes in and around Harmondsworth being demolished, families facing the threat of compulsory purchase, and years of construction, noise and disruption. These are not lines on a map. These are people's homes, people's livelihood and people's futures. And where's the Mayor of London? Previous expansion proposals, he came forward. Sadiq Khan couldn't wait to tell everyone he opposed them. This time, when residents need him to stand up to his own government, he has been nowhere to be seen. In fact, Madam Mayor, Sadiq Khan has been almost as quiet as Councillor Punja these days, and that is saying something. So perhaps they're both waiting for someone in Labour HQ to tell them what they're allowed to say. If the Labour government is determined to impose Heathrow expansion on Hillingdon, then it should also meet the full cost of the planning process and the council's response. Hillingdon Council should not be forced to divert money away from local services simply to defend residents from a scheme imposed by Whitehall. This Conservative administration has always stood shoulder to shoulder with our residents, regardless of which party is in government. We have challenged Heathrow expansion before, and we will do so again. Today's motion sends a clear message to Labour. If you choose to expand Heathrow, then you must also pay for the full cost of dealing with it. Do not ask people in Hillingdon to fund at the fight against a decision they never asked for. They deserve politicians who are on their side and are prepared to stand up for them, not go missing when it matters. I fully support this motion and I urge all members to do so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Maid.
Madam Mayor, I speak on behalf of the Labour Group and we will be abstaining on this motion. Let me say at the outset, we oppose Heathrow expansion because of the impact it would have on residents, homes, communities, air quality and climate. That position is not in doubt. What is in doubt is whether this motion is intended to help Hillingdon residents, and frankly, it reads as though it is purposely drafted to make it difficult for Labour members to support because of its partisan tone and misleading language. This council already knows where we stand on Heathrow expansion. Repeating opposition is not enough. What matters now is how we protect residents through the consultation process and how seriously we take the work ahead. This motion does not move that forward. It is more interested in political theatre than practical outcomes. It is also wrong to imply that the Mayor of London does not play his part. His position on Heathrow has been clear for years. He opposes a third runway because of the impact on air quality, climate, noise and transport. He has supported opposition to Heathrow expansion, including resource and funding alongside Hillingdon in previous legal challenge work. So let us not rewrite the record for political convenience. The Conservatives also cannot pretend that their own national position on Heathrow has been consistent. Their current leader has said she would back a third runway, while Conservatives have previously voted for expansion in Parliament. So this is not some principled anti-expansion stance. It is a mixed record, and that is exactly why this motion lacks credibility. If the party opposite want a united front, then they should start by acting like it. Instead, they have chosen to frame this issue in a way that is openly partisan and, in our view, shameful. Heathrow expansion is too serious for that. Residents across Hillingdon deserve better than party games. We are on the side of all residents, protecting homes, communities, schools, businesses, health and quality of life, wherever the impacts are felt, whether directly or indirectly. For Labour, this is not about party politics. It is about standing with all residents and taking a serious, responsible approach to a matter that affects the whole borough. We support opposition to Heathrow expansion and we support the practical calls to action that protects residents, but we do not support using this chamber to score points over an issue that requires unity, seriousness and focus. Therefore, the Labour Group will abstain on this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mand. Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The campaign against the proposed third runway at Heathrow is of such a critical level of importance, which should be way above petty political point scoring, as it affects the very existence of communities and the lives of thousands of our residents. But it seems not, as the party opposite wants to point the finger of unhelpfulness at the Mayor of London, who has thrown his weight against the third runway at every opportunity, and I quote him on this issue as he has spoken. I remain opposed to a third runway at Heathrow because of the severe impact it will have on noise and air pollution. I will be scrutinising carefully the new proposals that have come forward, including the impact on people living in the area and the huge knock-on effects for our transport infrastructure. Despite the progress which has been made in the aviation sector to make it more sustainable, I'm simply not convinced that you can have hundreds of thousands of additional flights at Heathrow every year without a hugely damaging impact. I compare this quote to that of His Majesty's Leader of the Opposition, who said on Sky News Sunday morning with Trevor Phillips, and I quote, "I think we need to make sure that we deliver infrastructure. I voted for the third runway at Heathrow before, and why would I change my mind, end quote. To this, I add the quote from her Shadow Secretary of State for Transport, Richard Holden, who told the Standard that a third runway at Heathrow would certainly deliver growth, which was welcomed. He also submitted parliamentary questions demanding that the Department of Transport ensures the project avoids unnecessary delays. So maybe the leader, rather than having a pop at the Mayor of London, who apart from being totally opposed to the third runway, has also funded legal cases against it, should write to his own party leader to ask her to oppose the third runway and ask the Shadow Secretary of State to stop pushing for a speedy delivery of the third runway. It seems ironic that this administration is now asking the Mayor of London, who it has consistently and continuously lambarded, for help when its own party can't wait until the concrete of the third runway is laid. A motion caring more about political point scoring than for its deeply concerned residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, speakers. I will get there in the end, guys. Any other speakers? No. If not, Councillor Tuckwell, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Where on earth do I begin after hearing what I've just heard? Councillor Amand and Councillor Sweeting suggest that parts of this motion should be softened, amended or removed. Let me remind them, residents will be watching you. Rather than defend Sadiq Khan over residents, you'd rather defend Sadiq Khan over our residents. If you abstain tonight, why are you here? I simply say this, our residents do not elect us to pull our punches. They expect us to speak plainly and stand up for Hillingdon wherever decisions affecting this borough are made. That means speaking clearly to government because it has chosen to take these proposals forward. It means speaking clearly to Heathrow Airport because it's promoting these schemes. And yes, it means speaking clearly to the Mayor of London, whose strategic planning framework should properly recognise the profound implications of Heathrow expansion would have on this borough. He may well say warm words about opposing expansion, but his policy framework that would protect this borough and its residents is completely silent on Heathrow expansion, and the party opposite just do not get it. None of that is party political, it is simply holding decision makers to account. The principle is straightforward. If you have influence over decisions that affect Hillingdon, then you should expect Hillingdon Council to have something to say about it. So let's not dilute the message tonight. Let us stand with one clear, consistent voice worthy of the residents that we all represent. Our opposition to Heathrow expansion has never wavered. Our determination to protect Hillingdon should not waver tonight. I ask members to support this very, very important motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. So, for those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. Okay. Those against? The motion is carried. Okay. Motion 9.3, Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move this motion first and foremost because this is about the people of Hillingdon. For decades, our borough has carried the burden of Heathrow with the threat of expansion in sight, as we have discussed in the previous motion, and I'll be respectful to residents and those here tonight by just amplifying voices that have been heard across the chamber about the negative impact that Heathrow expansion would have with terms of noise, air quality, traffic congestion and uncertainty. Now, once again, the communities facing the threat of expansion need time to respond, to consultation. As it's been put very clearly by my colleagues, Labour's position here in Hillingdon is clear. We oppose Heathrow expansion because of the unacceptable impact it will have on our residents, our environment and our community. And opposing expansion is only one part of our responsibility tonight. As a council, we have a duty to ensure Hillingdon submits the possible strongest responses to these consultations and future consultations. That response must be rooted in evidence, informed by residents and capable of standing up to scrutiny. This consultation is unlike anything we've seen before, and there is acknowledgement that two elements at once is difficult to manage. The government is consulted on national policy, while at the same time Heathrow faces the prospect of two competing development consent orders. This creates enormous complexity, not just for this council, but also for the residents trying to understand what is being proposed and how it affects them, what the possible options are, and the different combinations. Communities cannot be expected to digest thousands of pages of technical documents within an already demanding timetable. That is why our motion calls simply on the government to extend the consultation period to give residents a voice, not just for delay's sake, but to give residents the opportunity they deserve to understand the proposals, to participate meaningfully and ensure their voices are properly heard. It also gives this council more opportunity to strengthen its own response by engaging more deeply with those affected communities and having time to gather further evidence on the impacts across Hillingdon for places like Heathrow Villages, as we've mentioned tonight many times. Madam Mayor, I also want to make one point in how we conduct this debate. There is political difference on many things across this chamber. That's inevitable. But Heathrow expansion has always been bigger than party politics here. It is sad that we have seen that play out in the previous motion, and I hope that in this motion there will not be the same political footballs. My colleague has mentioned the Mayor of London's continued opposition to Heathrow expansion, so we don't need to discuss that here. But residents do not worry, do not care for much of the time the party politics. What they worry about is how they and their homes can be protected, how their communities can survive, and how their voices can be heard. So by voting unanimously across this chamber tonight, this motion can strengthen our response. It can strengthen resident engagement, it can strengthen the evidence being gathered, and it strengthens ultimately Hillingdon's ability at both council level and as residents to make the case against Heathrow expansion in these consultations. And I hope members from all sides of the chamber will support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise in support to second this motion in absence of my colleague for Heathrow Villages, who is very proud to represent the communities most directly affected by any proposal to expand Heathrow Airport. For the residents of Heathrow Villages, this is not an abstract policy debate. This is not simply a discussion about aviation capacity, national infrastructure or economic growth. This is about people's homes, people's health, people's quality of life, and the future of communities that have lived under the shadow of Heathrow expansion for far too long. For many residents, the threat of third runway has created years of uncertainty, as we all agree, uncertainty about whether their homes will be protected, about whether their villages will remain intact, about noise or air quality, traffic, pollution and disruption, and an uncertainty about whether the voices of local people are truly being listened to. That is why this council must speak clearly, strongly, and where possible with one united voice. Hillingdon is the borough most directly affected by Heathrow expansion. The impact would not be theoretical for us. It would be felt by residents in their daily lives. As councillors, whatever political persuasion we have, our first duty is to residents we represent. On this issue, Hillingdon has a long-standing position of opposing third runway expansion. That position has been held across different political administrations, across different national governments, and it is positioned rooted not in party politics, but in lived experiences of our residents. The Hillingdon Labour Group's position is clear. We support a better Heathrow, not a bigger Heathrow. I also want to address the national context honestly. The government has launched a consultation on proposed changes to airport's national policy statement, with the consultation closing on 1st of September. Given the scale and complexity of what is being considered, that is not enough time to do it professionally like we would like to do. Residents, community groups, local authorities and stakeholders need proper time to examine the proposals and respond meaningfully. A rushed consultation risks excluding the very people who will be most affected. We believe this council should be clear in calling for that deadline to be extended. And I want to be equally clear, we will not defend any government. I believe local residents are being let down, whether decisions are made by a Labour government, a Conservative government or any government. Our responsibility in this chamber is to the residents of Heathrow villages and to the wider Borough of Hillingdon. And residents do not want opportunistic point storing. They want leadership, and this motion does exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Draw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the Reform UK Councillor for Useley, my priority is the people who elected me. Heathrow is a major employer and an important driver of our local and national economy, and that's just not something we can ignore. However, neither can we ignore the impact on the residents who live closest to the airport. If the expansion is taken forward, it must not come at the expense of local communities. Those affected deserve meaningful consultation, proper infrastructure, mitigation for noise, air quality, and fair treatment throughout the process. Reform believes in putting local people first. Whatever decisions are ultimately made nationally, the voices of Hillingdon residents must be heard and respected. Growth should never mean overlooking the people who bear the greatest impact. I welcome the Council's commitment to ensuring residents are fully represented throughout this consultation and will continue to stand up for not only the people of Useley, but the whole of Hillingdon. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Draw. Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Labour motion before us this evening is one of the most important of any which has ever graced this chamber, as it is asking for adequate time to allow a detailed and effective response to the government's consultation on the proposed third runway at Heathrow. It asks for time to allow councils plural and residents multiple to explain and describe in detail to the government what a third runway would deliver, not only for those residents whose homes would be crushed under the runway and the communities that will be scattered to the wind, but for all of the communities of Hillingdon and beyond. For let it be known that proposed flight paths have no ward boundaries. So the motion is asking the government for more time to allow proper scrutiny of the proposals, which would enable us all to explain why a third runway should not go ahead, by describing the loss of 750 plus homes and making a further 1,000 plus uninhabitable, making Longford, a large part of Harmersworth and Sipson, a destroyed landscape, inflicting catastrophic environmental and health impacts, including severe noise and air pollution on millions, entire historic local villages to be wiped out or displaced to make way for the multi-billion runway. I mention in passing the logistical nightmare of moving the busiest section of the M25 and the 300,000 to 500,000 additional people who would be exposed to flight noise. All this has been said before and is well documented by environmental experts, as well as our exceedingly well-informed local residents. However, what has not been adequately and properly recognised by those governments past and present is the grinding and relentless impact this issue has had on local people in Heathrow villages. For decades, they have been tossed and turned by successive governments which have flip-flopped over this issue, each change of mind bringing with it additional heartache and despair. This perpetual agony has got to come to an end. Residents of Hillingdon and beyond need time to consider this consultation in detail and at length, so that a resounding no will be said and heard from all parts of the borough and beyond. In this way, we may see an end to this perpetual torture being imposed on our residents of Heathrow villages. I ask you to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There is much in this motion that I welcome. Like our own motion, now passed, it reaffirms opposition to Heathrow expansion and makes clear that this council must continue to stand up throughout the process. However, this motion simply does not grasp the legal responsibilities that this council must discharge. It completely overlooks the statutory responsibilities this council now faces as a result of Heathrow expansion proposals progressing at the same time. As the local planning authority, we have a legal duty to fully engage with those proposals whilst reflecting this council's clear opposition to Heathrow expansion. Opposition and engagement are not mutually exclusive. Indeed, both are essential if we are to secure the strongest possible protections for our residents. That work is not optional. It will come at considerable cost, and Hillingdon taxpayers should not be expected to fund the consequences of government policy. This motion also misses the opportunity to challenge the Mayor of London's failure to meaningfully recognise Heathrow expansion within the London plan. Members opposite simply don't get it. We have worked alongside previous mayors in opposing Heathrow expansion because a united London voice is far stronger. That omission matters. And abstaining on the previous motion because we want the Mayor of London to step up is simply shocking. Finally, our motion, now passed, recognises not only the scale of the challenge facing this council, but also who should bear the cost of meeting it. It calls on government to provide the resources necessary to discharge our statutory responsibilities without the detriment to local services. So, whilst I welcome the sentiment behind this motion and the areas where there is common ground, and there is much, this Conservative administration believes our motion provides the more complete, the more responsible challenges facing this borough. Madam Mayor, for that reason, we will not be supporting this motion tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Tuckwell. Any other speakers? Okay, Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have attempted to build unity in opposition, but unfortunately, a motion that's already passed that puts points forward, through technicality or through whatever personal reasoning there may be, there has been a lack of maturity in the thoughts and a lack of integrity in the thoughts of how the Conservative group have considered this motion this evening. This motion is about residents, it's for residents and it's with residents, and it is calling for more time for residents and the council to consider the impacts and also the cost and other matters that need to be put to the government. This was an opportunity for us to stand with one collective, non-partisan voice and oppose Heathrow expansion. And tonight, the Conservative group have decided they will not continue to support Heathrow expansion opposition because they cannot vote for a motion asking for something that's meaningful and purposeful. And for me, that is a real shame. When there's been an opportunity to work together, again, they want to be divisive. They've shown divisive qualities throughout all of this year, not just the beginning of this term, and it is extremely bitterly disappointing to us and I'm sure a number of residents across this borough. This is one of the most important issues affecting our borough. We've heard the words, we need to see the action, and an extension to the consultation would only enhance that action. It wouldn't be anything that should be voted against. It wouldn't be anything harmful to what's already been put in a motion. It would have complemented and given more credibility to the motion they have just passed. So it is extremely disappointing, but it is not unexpected that the political games continue, and I hope there'll be an issue at some point for Hillingdon residents where we all mutually agree that the Conservatives will be get behind without playing political games.
Councillor Mathers, we will now go for a vote for those in favour of the motion. Recorded vote, apologies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Recorded vote has been asked for, exactly the same as before. So asking you if you are voting for the motion as moved by Councillor Mathers, seconded by Councillor Kaur, against the motion or abstaining. Councillor Ahmad Walana.
Against.
Councillor Ballum. Councillor Bennett. Councillor Bianco. Councillor Burke.
Against.
Councillor Bridges. Councillor Capps. Councillor Cawthorne. Councillor Davies. Councillor Dennis. Councillor Desi. Councillor Draw. Councillor Demergue. Councillor Edwards. Councillor Eggington. Councillor Elder. Councillor Farina de Castro. Councillor Gaelic. Councillor Garner. Councillor Gill. Councillor Gohill. Councillor Hassoun. Sorry, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Huddle. Councillor Amanpreet Kaur. Councillor Kamal Kaur. Councillor Lakmana. Councillor Lavery. Councillor Lucas. Councillor Mand. Councillor Martin. Councillor Mathers. Councillor Douglas Mills. Councillor Richard Mills. Councillor Murray. Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Punja. Councillor Rathore. Councillor Raval. Councillor Riley. Councillor Russell. Councillor Sansapuri. Councillor Singh. Councillor Singham. Councillor Smallwood. Councillor Sweeting. Councillor Taneja. Councillor Tuckwell. Madam Deputy Mayor. Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, that motion is lost. 30 votes to 15, I believe.
Right. 9.2. Okay. Motion 9.2 from Councillor Sansapuri.
Madam Mayor, I move this motion. Let me begin by saying this motion is not about opposing essential infrastructure work. We all recognize that gas mains need replacing, utility needs maintaining, and from time to time, road must be dug up. None of us would argue otherwise. The question before us this evening is much simpler. When major works take place in one of our town centre or on one of our key roads, are we doing everything we reasonably can to minimize the disruption to the residents, businesses, and those travelling through the borough? The experience is Haystone which has prompted this motion, but this is not Haystone motion. Hayes is the example that has brought these issues on the sharp focus. The lessons from it are relevant to every town centre and every community in Hillingdon. In this incident, residents told us they struggled to understand what was happening and when the work would end. Business experienced long disruptions. Bus users were delayed, including those with mobility issues, inconvenienced by the loss of bus stop. And disappointingly, Council found it difficult to obtain clear information as completion date slipped. Whether every one of those issues could have been avoided, it is not the point. The point is that they should be examined as a part of scrutiny committee to view that we understand how similar situation can be held better in future. Some may ask why this should come before full council rather than simply being raised at a select committee or an members' inquiry. Madam Mayor, the answer is straightforward. The full council has an important role in identifying issues of borough-wide significance and asking scrutiny to examine them. When something has had significant impact on a town centre, affected business, public transport,
thousands of residents, it is entirely appropriate for Council to ask the relevant Select Committee to undertake a review. The motion does not seek to blame, nor it does to seek to stop essential infrastructure projects from taking place. Instead, it asks for something constructive. It asks the Resident Service Select Committee to bring together agencies and representatives to understand what lesson can be learned and how the future work can be planned and communicated more effectively. Major infrastructure works are often planned many months in advance. That give us an opportunity not to prevent them, but to prepare them better. Better communication with residents, earlier engagement with trader, and improved coordination between the organization involved should be objective that every member in this chamber can support. Ultimately, this motion is about continuous improvement. Good organizations do not simply move on after significant events. They reflect, they learn, and they improve. That is exactly what we are asking the Select Committee to do today. Madam Mayor, today I asked members not to view this through the lens of one ward or one political group. Instead, I asked you to support a sensible, constructive review that seeks to improve the experience of residents, businesses, visitors, whenever major work takes place in Hillingdon in future. I move this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sansbury. Do we have a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I second and reserve my right to speak at the end.
Thank you, Councillor Mathis. Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Bridges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Allow me to begin by saying that no one on this side of the chamber underestimates the disruption experienced by residents, businesses and visitors in Hayes Town Centre. Major utility works on this scale are inevitably disruptive, and where there are lessons to be learned around communication, traffic management and engagement with local businesses, we should absolutely take those on board. I also want to place on record my thanks to the council officers who work closely with CAD and other partners throughout these works. While many aspects of the programme were outside the council's direct control, officers consistently pressed for improvements sought to mitigate the impact wherever possible and respond to the concerns raised by residents and local businesses. However, it is important to distinguish between operational issues affecting a particular locality and matters that warrant consideration by full council. Every member of this chamber has faced significant local challenges in their own wards, whether arising from roadworks, utility schemes, traffic management, parking matters or service delivery issues. We already have well-established mechanisms through Cabinet members, ward councillors and members' inquiries to raise concerns and hold partners to account and work towards practical solutions. It is therefore important, particularly for newer members, and in this instance Councillor Sansapuri, to recognise that these processes exist for a reason. They provide the most effective and efficient means of addressing operational issues of this nature and securing outcomes for residents. If every operational matter affecting a single town centre, road or neighbourhood were brought before full council, we would risk diverting this chamber away from its primary purpose, which is to set strategic direction of the borough, determining key policy matters and debating issues of significance to Hillingdon as a whole. That is not to say that these concerns raised this evening are unimportant, far from it. The concerns of residents and businesses have been heard. They have been raised repeatedly with the relevant parties, action has been taken where possible, and we will continue working with the utility companies and other partners to improve the planning, communication and delivery of major infrastructure works in the future. No one should mistake our position this evening for a lack of concern or sympathy for those affected. Rather, it reflects our belief that the Council already has the appropriate mechanisms in place to address these issues and drive the improvements that residents rightly expect. And it's because those mechanisms exist and because full council should remain focused on borough-wide strategy, major policy decisions and matters of significant importance to the whole borough that we will not be supporting this motion this evening.
Cheers. Councillor Dessy, your maiden speech. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. As a newly elected councillor, I have the pleasure of speaking for the first time on an issue that has not only affected my own ward, but also every ward across the borough. In Hayes Town, I have seen the impact of roadworks firsthand, residents have spoken about lengthy delays, changing traffic arrangements and bus diversions that are making everyday journeys incredibly difficult. At times, people could see little or no work being carried out on site, sometimes for days at a time, and naturally began asking whether the works were progressing as planned and when the disruption would finally come to an end. Members across the Chamber will recognise these concerns from residents and businesses in their own communities. I have heard the same concerns raised in Ruislip, Uxbridge and Uxley. The impact is often felt most acutely by local businesses, which are the backbone of our local economy. Many have told me that prolonged disruption and reduced footfall affect trade and make it harder for customers and staff to access the town centre. Businesses have also raised concerns about the lack of timely information, making it difficult to plan ahead and to keep customers informed when normal trading conditions might return. Hayes Town has experienced these challenges directly, and that experience underlines why this motion is really important. The motion raises an important question about communication and accountability. If residents and businesses are struggling to obtain basic information about ongoing works, how can we be confident that utility companies are being challenged sufficiently and held properly accountable and are being held accountable for the impact those works are having on local communities? This review is not about attributing blame, it is about identifying how communication and oversight can be improved so that residents and businesses have a better experience when major works take place. Regular updates for ward councillors and local businesses are urgently needed when significant schemes like this are underway. Timely and proactive communication would go a very long way towards addressing many of the concerns we hear. Residents rightly expect works on their doorsteps to be managed and communicated effectively as possible. I believe that is an entirely reasonable expectation, and for that reason, I am pleased to support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dessy. Councillor Sweeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wholeheartedly support the motion as this issue is a borough-wide one and not confined to the chaos described in this motion which descended on Hayes Town. For evidence, I use the words of West Drayton residents to describe uncoordinated approach between the utility companies and the council which occur. The resident quote starts here. You will understand that having waited years and years for our pavements to be reconstructed and made safe, the last thing I want is to have this pristine, smooth pavement to be dug up and left uneven. I am glad that my letter highlighting the stupidity of reconstructing our pavements this week and then for you, a utility company, to follow and dig them up again. I am glad that as a result of my letter that you and the council are now coordinating your respective works. But I would point out that about 30% of the pavement works have either been completed or in the process of being renewed. So make your assertion that the works are being managed in a joined up and coordinated manner is somewhat difficult to accept. I'm afraid that the London Borough of Hillingdon has a laissez-faire attitude to disruptive roadworks and appears to simply rubber stamp each and every application from utilities without any consideration of their effect on residents. As evidenced when in August 23 a utility company installed a new service through Station Road, West Drayton, which was so badly planned that it did not comply with Transport for London guidance over linked works, that we, residents and businesses of West Drayton, suffered weeks of gridlock. This quote now comes from me as a West Drayton resident. I'm about to experience a clash with the right hand of the council undertaking a pavement resurfacing in my road, but is possibly unaware that the left hand, in the shape of a utility company, is about to dig up the self-same pavements. The letters from the council and the utility company announcing their separate works on the same length of pavements arrived on exactly the same day. I support the motion as it is listening to the voices of our residents and businesses. Thank you.
Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's an old proverb that road to hell is paved with good intentions. I'd suggest a chunk of Hayes Town Centre was paved with them too this spring. Nobody doubts the intentions were good. gas mains need replacing. But good intentions aren't a substitute for good planning, and this administration is not known for being proactive. The LGA's own guidance on street work set out exactly what good practice looks like. It simply wasn't applied enough. The core problem is that utilities bear the cost of working quickly, while residents, traders, bus passengers bear the cost of it being done badly. Fixing that requires this council to lead. 3 things from LGA good practice should be made standard in Hillingdon, and hope Councillor Bridges, who has expressed willingness to learn from this experience, will do so earnestly. First, the same trenches, the same times, where gas, water, broadband and electricity works are coming down the line. This council should be pushing utilities into dig once arrangements, one road opened once for everyone, not the same street dug up in stages for one utility after another. Second, proactive visible communication, not an afterthought once residents and businesses start complaining. Advanced work windows, not maximum time permits issued after the fact. Quarterly forums with the main utilities. Signage naming who is doing the work and for how long. And accessibility planned from day one. Diversions, drop curbs, payment services designed with disabled residents, elderly residents, parents and school children in mind, not added on when someone complains. A closed bus stop is a minor delay for some of us. For someone with limited mobility, it can mean being cut off entirely. Third, using the tools already available to this administration. Permit discounts for firms that share trenches or make good first time. Lane rental, so speed is in the firm's financial interest, not just its legal obligation. This isn't a wish list. It's what good already looks like set out in the LGA's own guidance. The only thing misses here seems to be the will to apply it. So my challenge to this administration is simple. Stop learning about good practice after residents suffer and start applying it before they do. And everyone in this chamber, can I ask, please support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kaur. Any other speakers? Okay. Councillor Mathers.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I said, I'm pleased to second this motion because it's about improving the whole borough. And we do thank officers who work tirelessly, sometimes and often with limited resources. And we did anticipate the calls that this is for a member's inquiry or that things could be done just by simply writing an email. Well, those emails were sent. Those members' inquiries were submitted, not just by myself, but also previous members of this chamber, asking what's happening, where's the communication, how can this be improved in Hayes Town? Unfortunately, the answers didn't come for me until after the works were removed. Not demonstrating necessarily a problem with those officers, but maybe demonstrating a challenge of capacity, which we fully respect. But this motion doesn't talk about spending money. It talks about learning. We heard many words from the Cabinet member. There seemed like there was a sense of a willingness to learn. But there's no actions listed. And where was that spirit of willingness to learn, to improve things strategically for this borough, when simply he could learn from peers and witnesses through a scrutiny committee? So what could a review in this area achieve? It could achieve better coordination with TfL and utility companies. It could have achieved better communication with residents, better sequences of multiple schemes, better signage, better diversion information, better use of technology, learning from practice elsewhere, a particular weakness of this administration. Listening to businesses, residents and partners' organisations should not be ignored. And this motion was a great opportunity to express that. Scrutiny committees play a vital role in this council, and they can directly address strategic challenges or perceived frustrations of residents borough-wide. Many, many people will always express frustration about roadworks. We get that. The frustration for these essential works that people are most expressing is the one where it appears to be lack of information, lack of communication, and also a lack of coordination. Residents aren't asking for roadworks to disappear. They understand essential works must happen. They are asking for better coordination, better communication and better management expressed by their council. This motion simply asks to listen, to review and to improve, something this administration should reflect on deeply.
Thank you, Councillor Mathers. Councillor Sansapuri.
Madam Mayor, everything I wish to say has already been covered in my main speech, and the issues raised during this debate have also been addressed by my fellow councillor. Therefore, I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sansapuri. Okay, now we go straight to the vote. Those for the motion, please raise your hands. Those against? That motion is lost. Thank you everyone across the chamber for this evening, and I declare this meeting now closed. Did it harder?